Los Angeles, and I want to tell you everything that I know about writing films. So sit back, relax, and let's get into this. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it down below and subscribe and join our membership program, please. So fun. I'd love to see you over there. But let's get into it. I have everything written down here. So, writing. Let's talk first about what the difference between like a book and a movie for writing. Because I don't know if you know, but I'm going to talk to you as if you know nothing. A novel is very different from a movie when you're writing. A book, which is a novel, is going to be written in a way that has eloquent language, that is trying to capture you, trying to basically invoke your imagination, right? Like when you read a book, a really good book, it's going to live in your head forever, basically, right? That's the fun of a book. Because of that, books have unlimited freedom. You can basically write them in a way that if you can think it, you can write it, right? Screenwriting is almost the complete opposite of novel writing, where novels have really eloquent language, you know, very filled and colorful language. Screenplays tend to not. And you might be like, Nick, wait, what do you mean they don't have colorful language? They don't. The point of a screenplay when you write for movies is instead of, you know, writing to get the reader to imagine, you're actually writing more for practicality. So what I mean by that is when you're writing a movie, you write it in a way for it to be shot, for it to be filmed, and as simple as possible to get all the beats across without taking as much time for the reader. So think of it as if, you know, if you ever watch TikTok or Instagram or something, you know how your attention span goes really quick. Well, for screenwriters, that is also something they have to be aware of. They want to grab the reader and just tell them the basis of the story as quickly as possible, having them, you know, basically feel what it is without them lavishing in it. The goal of a screenplay isn't for the reader to, you know, read it over a long period of time. They want to sit down and read it all in one go. While a book is the opposite. Usually authors want you to lavish in it, to live in the world, right? So that's the difference. Also, writing is very different structurally in a novel and a movie, and this is very important. In a novel, it's in prose, meaning that, you know, they'll say, the girl went to the store and she said this to Jim, and Jim, you know, didn't want to buy the candy from her, but he did anyways, and then the cousin was, you know, sleeping with the best friend, and they saw them and she blushed, right? It's talking in that type of language. A screenplay, what it will look like is it will have a line, it will say your action, so it'll be like, so let's say for the novel, it's like Jess walks into the store, she's overwhelmed with this, you know, this feeling of love, or this feeling of like the red cupboards up upon the store. Say there are red cabinets, so she will. So, oh my gosh, sorry, but let's say Natalie. So her name's Natalie. Natalie walks into this little bodega. She goes up to the counter. She loves all the candy that's in front of her. It's luscious blue. It's vibrant green. The smell, it smells like cotton candy. And then in prose, it would be like, and she talked to the clerk and asked for money. The clerk decided not to, you know. So, in a screenplay, it would look like this. It'd be like Natalie walks into, it would be, say, exterior. It will show you where you are, exterior, storefront. And then it says day or night, day. And then I go, Natalie walks into store. She looks at candy, looks up to store owner, and then you would go down to dialogue and she say, hey. And dialogue would be shown differently. So, format's different. I would put it on here, but, you know, if you're interested, go check it out on Google or Bing. I am a Bing boy, so don't come at me. I love Bing, but that's sort of a difference. So I just want to let you know that. So if you're a novel writer, screenwriting is a very different technique. So yeah. Next, we're going to go on to structure. So the really fun thing about screenwriting that I really appreciate, and also the difficulty of it, is there's so many philosophies towards writing, because some writers, every writer in almost every art form does things differently. But in screenwriting, there is structure. So there's an act structure. There's a way that screenplays can be derived. When you watch a film, there are certain beats that almost every screenplay, every movie has, and that's fun. But then there are also some films that don't follow any of those. So let's just talk. I'm going to talk to you about the fun logistical beats that are pretty much, when I say it, are pretty much in every single film. It's called a 3-act structure. A 3-act structure, you might remember this from also Shakespeare back in the day, did a 5-act structure. It's sort of the same point, but there are a lot of different writers like Blake Snyder, Michael Hogg, and who else? What else was the other book? There's other people that have their own philosophies on how to write, but it all comes down basically to these points. I'm going to tell you about it. So, a 3-act structure, these are the main beats of a story. So I'm going to tell you all this, and I'm going to tell you what works for me. Because the fun part about writing is you kind of get to feel what clicks with you and what doesn't. So a 3-act structure is a story that's broken into 3 acts. I'm going to tell you what every act is, and you'll be able to kind of understand what I mean, because, and this might be really useful for you, any story that you tell your friend, when you're gossiping, like our gossip videos on this channel, they all come back to this 3-act structure. So it might be really useful to you. Every story has this. So Act 1 is this. Act 1 has a couple, so in every act, there's 3 of them. There are main beats that you need to hit. So the first act, Act 1, is basically us basically introducing the protagonist, and I'll tell you all about this, but introducing the world and the characters and all of that. I'm going to get into characters later and stuff, so stay with me, but for structure, so for structure, you are going to, for Act 1, there are going to be a couple points. First is the opening image. An opening image is going to be the first thing that the audience sees. We're going to basically see how the world is in its normal state. So Act 1 is setting up a normal state. You're going to have your character, you're going to, show what the world is normally like for them. Where are we starting out? And that usually takes place in the first 10 pages or so. Just so you know. The reason also that screenwriting is formatted differently than novel writing or book writing is because it's formatted in a way so that every page equals 1 minute of filming. So if you have 90 pages of a script, which is usually the go-to for a very short script feature movie, that's 90 minutes long. So when I say pages, you can also look at a movie and see what page or what minute it would be at, but in the first 10 minutes or so of a movie, you are going to be introduced to all the main characters in the story. You're going to be introduced to who they are, their faults, where they're at in life. Around minute 12, page 12, in the first act, we're still in the first act, there is what's going to be called an inciting incident. So, an inciting incident is something that makes the main character, uproots them from their normal life and changes their trajectory. Something happens to them that they can't ignore, that's altering of their life. So let's talk about some. For instance, an inciting incident for, oh my god, I might butcher these, this is so pressure, but let's say this. So I just watched Marriage Story last night. If you watch Marriage Story, the inciting incident of that is when they sit down with the divorce lawyers. I think it's that. I think the inciting incident is either, see, it can be a little tricky, but the inciting, I should have wrote this down earlier, but the inciting incident most likely when Nicole, it's when they sit down with their divorce attorneys and they realize they're going to get a divorce. That's probably the inciting incident. That might be argued. That's kind of a hard story to do. Jurassic World, if you've seen that, the original, the inciting incident for that is when the scientists, so they're doing their normal, like, you know, finding their bones, right? And then the huge scientist, or the big billionaire guy that owns Jurassic World, comes to these scientists and he offers them an opportunity to come visit. That is the inciting incident. It's a point where things can be altered in these main characters' lives. That's in every single story. That's what makes a story a story. Because if you don't have an inciting incident, there's no reason to tell the story because nothing's changing, right? So the inciting incident happens in Act 1. And then the next thing that happens, I love all this. This is like why it's so fun. So you have the characters, right? The main character, we'll just say like the main character, he or she is living her main life. Something happens to them. And also I'm going to introduce something that's going to be an easy way to remember all this, but something happens to them. Then they have a moment of, do they, won't they? They have to decide if they're going to if they're going to go into this new world or if they're not. Right? Are they going to accept the challenge or not? Just so you know, they always accept it. That's what leads us into Act 2. So Act 1, if just for a recap, is we get to know the characters, the main characters, an inciting incident happens, something happens. The character goes in denial, doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to accept it, but then is forced and takes the action themselves to do the inciting incident or to go into another world. So Act 1 is basically setting up the story. Act 2 is going to be the meat of your story. So Act 2 is basically the character going into a new world, going into unknown territory, going on an adventure, whatever that looks like for any story. Act 2 is where, when you watch a trailer. So Act 2 is where they pull all the fun little things from movies. So when you're in a theater, unless it's literally, like, I don't know if you watched the Wicked trailer. I know you guys have probably seen Wicked, but some trailers now literally just tell you the entire story. But usually, if it's a good trailer and you're like gripped by it, they're gonna show you a lot of stuff from Act 2, because that's when I'll get into this. As Blake Snyder says, that's where the fun in games happens. So that's the meat of the story. But think about this, to get to the meat of the story, we first have to know our character and understand and empathize with our character and realize, that this isn't easy for them, because this is something for writing, the more conflict there is in your screenplay or your movie, the deeper it's going to resonate with audiences. Okay, the more conflict there is for the main character, the deeper the film is going to resonate with the audience. More conflict creates more stakes, and this is why writing is really fun. Writing is basically solving a puzzle. You get these characters at the beginning, something happens to them, and they go into a new world in Act 2, and it's just incredible. Your goal as a writer is to not help your character win or go for the thing they're trying to get. Your job is to make it as difficult as possible for them, because it's going to illuminate a lot of growth and illuminate a lot of theme, which I'll tell you about in a bit. So we're in Act 2. The characters are now going into a new story. So if we go Jurassic World again, we have the scientists now go into Act 2. So think about this. So they're doing their bone things, and the billionaire's like, yo, come to Jurassic Park. And they're like, well, no, why would we go? That's the do we, don't we? And that's in every single movie. Do we, don't we? And then he's like, well, I'll pay for, 3 years of your excavation if you come and do this for me. And they go, okay. So the main characters in Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, I don't know which one is it, Jurassic World, I think. It's the original where all the juicy stuff is with the dinosaurs, right? Well, then in Act 2, so now they're in a new world, right? They're in uncharted territory. Act 2 is the longest portion of the film. So if you think about a film, Act 1 is going to be from like page 1 to page 25, which is like 1 minute to 25 minutes. Act 2 is going to go from like 25 pages up to like 80. It is the main bulk of the story. The most happens. And I'll just give you a quick rundown of what happens in Act 2, because there are beats. So the beginning is usually we're introduced to the B story. I'll tell you this later. There are 3 storylines that occur in a film to give it depth, to have it resonate with you. So usually a character is going to be doing something, right? So in Jurassic World, it's an outer motivation. So the character, when the inciting incident happens, it's because they want to get something, right? So the outer motivation for this is for them to go to Jurassic Park and for them to like it, and so they can get money, right? So that's what the whole story is. The outer motivation, storyline A, is what you see the movie as, right? So when you watch a movie, it's literally what you see. What are they trying to physically get, visually get, right? Storyline B is usually going to be the romance. Okay, so storyline A is the main character trying to get what they want. And then storyline B happens. So that starts the whole film. Storyline B happens in Act 2, and basically the main character meets like a love interest or a romance interest, someone that is going to help them when they get to the end of the movie to help solve the film. So they usually are the theme. They identify with a lot of thematic elements, and a theme, if you don't know, which I didn't tell you yet, but a theme of a film is basically the takeaway. So it's the takeaway from the film. So for instance, when you watch a film and you might be like, oh, that's really exciting, but the theme would be like, it's usually like asking a question. It's being like, so for Jurassic World, it's like, is it worth, if you could bring back dinosaurs, would you? If we had the power to, would you? If humans had the power to, control the environment, should we follow through and do that? Or is that only God that can? It's a thematic question. It's something that's a very universal question. Something that can relate to all of us. It could also be a theme. It could be like love wins. Honesty is important. It's all of these things. And the story itself will illuminate this and answer that question for you. The love interest usually comes in late, so they come in the beginning. I'm really nerding out, but the love interest, the reason you also have storylines is because storyline A, B, and C is because they help pace the film. So think about this: if you're always in a storyline, and you're just like go, you're gonna get burnout. You've probably seen films before where it's just like all action and you're just like, you zone out, right? You're just like, well, this is too much to take in. A B storyline helps break it up, so you'll have like an action base, and then basically you'll have these slow down moments. You'll have these slow down moments of, taking in what's happening, understanding what this means to the character, understanding why this is important. So that's what the B storyline does. They usually don't really fully impact A storyline until the end. A C storyline, just so you know, is usually, I think, a storyline that's just there for theme. So, I can't think of anyone on the top of my head, but it's just to help supply support for the theme or the answering at the end of a theme. So, storyline A, B, and C, they go down in that order of how much airtime you're going to see them. So storyline A is going to have the most of the film, B will have a portion of it, and C will have only a little bit. But it's helped to like give it levels. So for instance, if you have the theme of, I don't know what the C storyline is for C storyline might be Nedry, but I don't know for Jurassic World, but C storyline. So if the theme is like, you know, humans should not tamper with nature. That's like what should humans control nature? It's like the thematic question. Storyline C would be like, so we have like the main character, you know, doing that, and then like Jurassic World's love story. Just so you know, like romance B storyline is actually not a romance one. It's actually between the main guy and the children, which I can talk about that in a whole other film or a whole other video. But they basically help make him realize the importance of you know, nature, like basically importance of like not doing science full time. Like nature is important and having children is important. And he starts the film out not wanting kids, not even liking them, and ends adoring these children. So storyline C would be, I think there's an entry, it's like or it's maybe it would be like a coworker, or maybe number C would be something totally removed. It would be us following a dinosaur, and we slowly see how the humans are, you know, from the dinosaur's POV, getting damaged by human technology, right? And then maybe throughout the film, you know, because there's a dinosaur that dies in the film, maybe if we were like following the dinosaur nearly dies, and then at the end, you know, it intertwines with the A storyline, because we meet that in the A storyline of like the dying dinosaur, right? It's to give depth, it's to give like, oh, you know, everything's connected, but you don't need C storylines, you don't need B necessarily. I think you need B, but they're really important for layering and giving meaning to a film. So when a film resonates with you, it's because it has all those levels. But let's get back into A story. I just had to mention that. So Act 2, they enter this world. They do what's called the fun and games, which is everything that you see in the trailer is in the first half of Act 2, up to what's called the midpoint. So the midpoint is the middle of the film. We basically see why this movie is cool. Up to that point, you know, they enter this new world, and we understand, like, what is the cool premise of this film. For Jurassic World, it's that they're alive with real dinosaurs. So the first whole act of the second act is them encountering dinosaurs, learning from them, you know, what's so cool, interacting with them. The midpoint is gonna be the middle of the film, and it's a false victory or a false defeat. It's gonna be the total inverse of a climax, just so you know. The climax happens at the end of Act 2, and it goes into Act 3. That's the turning point. But the midpoint for Jurassic World is, oh gosh, you're really challenging me here. I think it's going to be when Nedry, I'm gonna totally butcher this. This is why it's a little difficult, but the false defeat. Oh, I'm so butchering it. Forgive me, but I think the false defeat would be when Nedry. I think the midpoint is going to be when Nedry releases I think it's when all the dinosaurs get out, and I think it's when maybe they almost die from the dinosaurs, like the kids and everything, and when they get separated. I think that's going to be the midpoint of Jurassic World, and that is going to be a false defeat. No, false victory, I don't know. Either way, but it's an inverse. It's a little tricky. I apologize. That's what makes writing so fun, to kind of like figure that out. But you're going to have a midpoint, which is literally the middle of the movie. If I looked at the movie, I could tell you. I just, on the top of my head, it varies. But, and then the second act is the bad guys close in. So they're usually, to give the movie urgency, in every movie there's usually what's called stakes, or the bad guys. You know, it could be a time limit. It could be like, what happens if, you know, it's escalating the problem, making it need the problem to be fixed now. So for Jurassic World, the dinosaurs escape, and the second act of it all is, okay, well, they have to escape. Oh wait, they're not with the kids. They have to go find the kids. Oh wait, to find the kids, they have to deactivate all the kids and release all the dinosaurs. Oh wait, when they do that, they let go of all the velociraptors. What the hell is it called? The really dangerous, the raptors. They let go of the raptors, which are really dangerous, and they do that. But then they're like, oh, but wait, when we do that, in order to reactivate the gates, we have to go into raptor territory, and meanwhile, people are dying. And so you see, that's like the stakes rising, and that's all Act 2 until we get to the climax. So usually the climax, what happens, this gets a little tricky, but the climax is the turning point of the entire film. Just so you know, I'm also still like learning all this, but this is how I view it, is the turning point of the film. So it's that big whoa moment. So what is the climax of Jurassic World? I think the climax of Jurassic World is, I think it's when the dinosaurs attack them or something. I can't really remember. I think it's the T-Rex. When the T-Rex attacks the raptors, that I would say is the climax, and I can tell you why I know that. Before the climax in every movie, there's going to be a all is lost moment. So that's when, everything seems like it seems like they failed, when I was saying that the opposite of a midpoint. So it's going to seem like everything failed and all of that, and then the climax is going to be the opposite. So climax is basically this moment where it flips and everything comes together. The B line is like the kids, the love interest is the solution to the story. They help the main character find the answer they were looking for, and then they can defeat the monster. So climax leads us into Act 3, and Act 3 is going to be the resolution. So the resolution is the act. It's only like 10 minutes long or so, but it's literally the act of the main character. So it's that they figure out what to do, then they defeat the bad guys. So in Jurassic World, they defeat the dinosaurs and they escape, and then it's that moment right after where they're in the helicopter, and it basically allows the audience to soak everything in. Act 3 is really just based for closing the story. So and you might be like, whoa, why do we need that? You would be surprised. In order for the climax and the themes to really resonate with people, they need time to digest it. So when you watch this climax in this film, the really big moment, the climax is usually, as you know, the moment that you'll remember of the film. It's the, whoa, they survived. Oh my god, whoa, they almost died, but they didn't. It's the in Marriage Story, it's like, whoa, they actually got divorced, right? It's all of that. Now, I will say, I'm learning currently, and this is something maybe I've not understand fully, but apparently there are two climaxes. There's a second act climax, and then a third act climax. The second act climax, I think, is a twist, and I think it's a twist that eventually leads to the main character feeling like all is lost, like they lost everything. Then, when they lose everything, the B storyline comes in. They realize that the answer's been with them all along, and then they generate a new idea into Act 3, into a new world, right? They're going into a new perspective, and then there's a climax at Act 3 where they maybe, actually defeat the villain. If you know, let me know in the comments down below, but that's something I'm currently learning now, which actually sounds true. But like I said, there's ways to structure this so many different times. me, Dan Harmon, he has this thing called a story circle, and it's literally a circle, and I encourage you to look it up if you like writing. It has helped me so much to understand the main beats of a story, and so this is what it is. So it's in a circle, and then there's a line in the middle, and at the top of it, it says stable, and underneath it says chaos or something, and you start at the top of the circle, and then you go, it says this, so the first, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 8 steps. The first step, he says, it's a U, and then goes need, and then a go, and then a search, find, take, return, change. So let me just, so it says you, so at the beginning of the story, you establish a character, okay? That needs something, that's number 2. They realize something isn't right, so they cross the threshold to find the thing that they need. Okay, and then they go into Act 2. Then we go underneath the chaos circle. But they go crossing the threshold to find something they need. So they search, they go on roto trials to find, so they search, they're searching, that's the fun and game stuff, so they're searching for something only to find at the midpoint something, and then they find what they were looking for only to take it, okay, so they take the thing they were looking for only to return, to bring it home, changed. So that might not make sense, go check the circle, but it's really awesome. It's about a character that needs something, so they go for something, and then they search for it, and they eventually find it. They then take the thing, okay, that they think they wanted, right? The reason they want, they have to take it. A lot of my writing, I always struggled with being like, well, what if they realize by the time, that's not what it's not good for them. No matter what, they're always going to want to take the thing if it's right in front of them. They worked so hard to get there, even if they know it's bad, they're going to take it. They take the thing, and this is the climax, only to return home. So they take it, and then because of that, they realize the problems that occur with it. They return, they bring it back to their normal situation, and they're changed now. So they learned something. So it's a full circle, because where they start, they also end, but they're different now. So that's a Dan Harmon story circle. I'm just mentioning that. Go look it up if you're interested. But yeah, so that's structure, just so you know too. So that's the 3-act structure. You might be like, Nick, that's very overwhelming. I get it. But what's really fun about it is, whether you know it or not, you most likely tell stories in that structure. It's a very innate way of storytelling. You begin with something only for something to change, only for it to evolve, only for them to realize something, right? They take something actually happens. That's the crux of the story, and then they learn something, right? That's weird. That's just what storying is about. So structure, though, just so you know, that's what a 3-act structure is. Every film basically has that. Pinpointing where it is in a film can be very difficult, but that's why I'm in a class now and I'm trying to learn that. You don't need to structure your film. A lot of people free write. They don't go according to structure, but I encourage structure because it saves a lot of time and it helps clear some plot holes. So definitely, if you're new at writing, do 3-act structure. It's basically in every film. So number 3 that I want to talk about with you guys, after we talked about, a movie versus story for writing, and then we just talked about structure, of screenwriting, of storytelling. Another fun thing is characters. So I'm going to tell you 4 different types of characters that are in every single film, or not really, but some archetypes. Characters are essential to your film. Your characters, so, we just talked about plot. We just talked about plot. Plot is the structure of the film. It's basically what happens in a film. So, Jurassic World. Okay, if we know that we want, these people to go to this be there and they need to solve it, this is what we ask, who would be the best characters to help enrich the story? And so for that we'd be like, oh well, scientists, why would they invite someone to Amusement Park? Well, if it was scientists, right? So that's why the main characters are scientists. It helps enhance the story. Characters enrich the plot. Characters drive motive. And characters are who we empathize with. Characters is what got me into writing. I used to act, and I used to love character development for acting. And I love storytelling through characters. So I'm going to tell you 4 different types of characters. The main character is called a protagonist. A protagonist. Every film basically has a protagonist. Sometimes there will be 2, but usually it's just one. It's the person that we empathize with, the person that has the most time on screen. Okay. Next, you're gonna have an antagonist. An antagonist is someone that opposes the protagonist. Now, the antagonist doesn't, this is where it gets confusing, doesn't always have to be a villain. An antagonist can actually be a friend. So, not to confuse this, but just so you are aware, an antagonist is just someone that makes it difficult for the person to get what they want. Okay? They make it difficult for the person to get what they want. The antagonist in Jurassic World, so protagonist would be, I forget all the names, but one, the main male scientist. The antagonist is Nedry, who sabotages the entire thing and lets all the dinosaurs out, right? Okay. Next would be, so there's always a protagonist and antagonist. The next one is, that's always the case. The next 2 are ones that you don't necessarily need, but usually you'll find them in films. Next one is called a reflection character, also known as a sidekick. So a reflection character is someone that goes alongside the main character and is solely there to offer reflection, to remind the character of who they are. You need this because it helps ground the character. It also gets those moments where we understand why what's happening is important. So we have a reflection character, and then the next character we have is a romance character, which in Jurassic World would be the kids. So it's funny because you start Jurassic World and you think the romance is going to be Laura Dern's character, but she actually is a reflection character, a sidekick basically, and then his romance is with the children. Very like parental. So you can change it, but basically a romance is someone that pulls at the heart of the protagonist and they help change the way they think. A reflection character does not change how they think, they just literally reflect back what's happening, basically, sort of. At least that's what I think. So characters are really fun. Sometimes you can develop characters through all sorts of means. I used to love making characters from people I knew. It's very fun, but it's very important for writing that you single out who your protagonist is, who's your antagonist, reflection, and romance, because it's easier for an audience to get mad at something if it's singled out instead of it being a vague thing. So if you have an antagonist just being a person, and if it is the nemesis, like Nedry, since he's the only one that's being antagonizing, it's easier for the audience to feel anger or feel, disconnect from that character, versus if it was like a group of people. It's always better to have it be one person for those things. The last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the whole writing aspect of this. So, as some of you guys know, I am in a class with UCLA. It's a screenwriting class, and I've done my own short films and stuff, and I am writing a 0 and to get into draft 1 of a screenplay. So first would be read books. But then the order that you do this is you do a log line. So the first thing you're ever going to do is you're going to write a log line. A log line is one sentence describing your film, and it will include the conflict. It'll include the protagonist, the conflict, what's at stake, and usually the resolution. It's going to contain basically what the entire thing that the story is about. So it's going to be like Jurassic World would be like, two scientists get invited to go to a amusement park filled with real dinosaurs, only to be trapped there, and having to save their life, only to be trapped there with all the dinosaurs when all the dinosaurs go loose, and they need to save themselves before they get eaten. Something like that. That's not great, but it's basically a sentence like that. They're hard to do, but you're gonna write a lot of log lines. You're then gonna see which one you resonate with you the most, or is the most best story, best story that people are interested in, and then you are going to then do what's called a synopsis. So you're gonna do the log line, then you're gonna that sentence there. You're gonna write a one-page synopsis of what you want the story to be about. You're gonna just put it all in one story, and it's gonna be very broad, but you're gonna just hopefully get a whole story, beginning, middle, and end to it. The next thing you're gonna do is then called outlining. So once you feel like your synopsis is set, you're then gonna break it down into scenes and main beats. So instead of in the synopsis, you might be like, for mine, I'd be like, Hunter and Paul, they have a fight on the hill. Okay. Or I'll be like, they have a fight on a hill, and then Hunter leaves. For scenes, you'd be like, okay, exterior hill, Hunter and Paul fight about. You would dive in, so they'd be like, they fight about, them not being invited to the wedding, and, Hunter gets angry and throws Paul's phone. Like, you just become more specific. So you'll do an outline, and once the outline's good, then you're gonna do, I think what's called a treatment. I don't know what that is yet, but basically from your outline, then you can go into writing the scenes. So now that you have like a roadmap, you then set time away to basically write the scenes of the outline. I can always talk about this a little bit more, but that's the structure. You're then gonna go through a draft of a first draft of a movie. If you ever want to do this, I want to just let you know one thing. Your first draft is going to be absolute shit. It is totally okay. The purpose of a first draft isn't for it to be good. It's to get the parameters around something, and then you can always edit it in. I like to spend 1 month writing. I write 3 pages a day for 30 days. I get 90 pages. I take a month off, rewrite it again. So you get space from it. But yeah, so I encourage you. Writing movies is really fun. It's very stimulating. It's very logical, but then it's very creative. I love writing scenes and not having any structure. I also love creating structure as well. So give it a go. Read some books. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. If you found this interesting, if you want more videos, let me know. And if you do want more videos, let me know what you want videos about. I can get very nerdy about this, but your boy's a little tired, and this video has been a little long, so I thought I'd say adios to you. But I can always talk more about this in another video. Make sure to like this video down below. Please comment. I would love to just hear from you in general. That's my favorite part of this channel, is just hearing you guys. And subscribe. Consider pressing that join button. It is the price of a coffee, and it helps this channel out tremendously. I work very, very hard on this channel. I have been doing this for around like 2 years or whatever, and we're trying to get to a place where we can be a little bit more supported. do. Money goes directly back to this channel. I don't use it for anything